G'day everybody and welcome to another episode of the Founder Podcast. Today myself and Justin interview big Magnus Olson from M26 Fit. How are you, Magnus?
Mate, I'm well, but I don't know about big sitting opposite you two units.
You bit scared, or what's happening? What's your mindset when you see us two?
Oh, mate, it started off as fear, but now it's I've calmed down a little bit, and now you just like Benny puts it, he's just a big teddy bear apparently.
Well, there you go. I don't know what to say to that.
Mate, talk to us about your career. Go back to where you started, obviously. How did you end up in this position? Obviously, we'll get to your credentials a little bit later, but just fill us in with a little bit of a backstory in terms of how you got to where we are today.
Yeah, well, career-wise, I guess I landed my first job as a 13-year-old selling the newspaper, and I guess that's probably I've been asked before just as far as entrepreneurial mindsets are concerned, and what I found was back then and subsequent jobs, I got paid for a result. So I only got paid for the number of papers that I sold. If I didn't sell any papers, then I wouldn't make any money. So whether it was rain, hail or shine, I was there walking up and down amongst the traffic at a main intersection on the south side, and that's where it all started. And then it morphed into carpentry, where I started my own business with my older brother as a 16-year-old, and same thing, we got paid for a result. We got paid for actually building something, and if we didn't build anything and if it was raining, then we wouldn't make any money. So that, I guess, from that mindset of you get paid for a result, you just don't get paid for just being at work.
I think that's probably, like you said, the one thing I took out of there's obviously mindset. So with the young people these days, walking up and down selling a newspaper, no way in the world someone would do that, but that's where it all started. So talk us through in terms of like from selling newspaper to starting your business to where you are today in terms of, building a massive empire in terms of all your building structures and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I guess the principles are the same. And a lot of it, I was very led by intuition and led by dreams. So when I was at school, I didn't do very well at school. School and myself didn't agree with each other too much. I wasn't very academic. And so during, as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old selling those newspapers, I just wanted to finish school and go to work. And so it was like, what can I do? And my dad was a builder, so I just followed in his footsteps and got an apprenticeship. But then I didn't enjoy the type of work that I was doing with Dad, and that's when I teamed up with my older brother, and we just started up our own business and started building for other builders just as carpenters. And then after a period of time, I wanted to grow that business, and so I ended up employing, I think, 10 people at the highest point in my career of carpentry. And then I wanted to get off the tools. Like, I'd been flogging myself on the tools. It's quite hot out there in summertime. And so then an opportunity arose to be a site manager. So then I went and was a site manager for, I think, 2 years. And then I went into the office because I wanted to get off site. So all of it was sort of just driven by that's where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And it's literally, like we discussed a little bit off air, of just grabbing an opportunity. So an opportunity arose to do something, and so I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a project manager, and then next thing you know, an opportunity arises, and then and it's all just working hard, and then it just evolved from there.
Magnus, in terms of your story, obviously you've alluded to the fact that there was, school wasn't necessarily for you and you had a few challenges at the start. For anyone out there who's listening to the podcast today and they're having some self-doubt issues or, maybe some dark times that they're working through, what advice would you give them around, believing in themselves and, moving forward with their life?
Yeah, I guess I can just talk from my own experience. I felt that it's just trusting yourself and backing yourself. And sometimes that can be difficult. I know with some kids, in their environment, they've not been in – my mum, for example, she used to always say to me that you can do anything you put your mind to. And that was the mindset that I took. It's just if I really want to do this and I really want to believe in myself, then I can achieve that. But the only other thing I could suggest to those kids is try and change your environment, and being in an environment where you're being encouraged. And if you hang around with kids in that environment, then you've got a much, I guess, greater chance to achieve, and people that are encouraging you to follow your dream, not people that are chucking rocks at you.
Yeah, I just want to dig a little bit deeper into obviously your school stuff. Obviously, we're big believers in schools, but just obviously for young people, like they get told they can't do this, they can't do this. If they leave school, opportunities won't happen. But you're obviously proven that wrong because you obviously school wasn't for you. You recognise that. So what stuff did you learn at school to actually give you the tools that you got today to actually trust yourself, back yourself, have good people around you to have what you have today?
I don't think I actually got that from that schooling environment. Like, as you guys know, I was a little 5-year-old kid when my parents decided to move to Australia and can't speak a word of English and got chucked into school. So I think in that environment to begin with, that was a very tough time, and it was midway through the year. So all the other kids in the class, they were all laughing, joking and carrying on. I couldn't understand a word anybody was saying, and nobody could understand a word that I said. So I think during that school environment, I didn't receive it from there. I think for me, it was probably family and friends outside of that. And as a father that was a builder, I'd been on building sites since I was 7 or 8 years old, and I just wanted to go and build things. And I guess I had a pathway to that maybe some of these kids you're referring to might not. But I believe now, isn't there TAFE and there's programs within the schools to get people into the trades?
Yeah, look, they've got TAFE, they've got apprenticeships, and I think at the grade 10, I think you can go out and do a trade while you're still in school as well. So I think my nephew was similar to that. He obviously recognised school wasn't for him, and he wanted to do a bit of boiler making and stuff like that. So yeah, he was fortunate enough to do both, where they do their practical stuff and they're only at school maybe once a week or something. So, yeah, no, totally. I think that's probably the best thing of these days. Obviously, there's a lot of different things for different kids where, school might not be for them, and school wasn't for me either. Like
so how did you go? I'm just curious. So you obviously turned into a very illustrious rugby league career. So what gave you that opportunity, and do kids have that opportunity now, do you think?
Yeah, I think when I look back, everyone goes, do you have any negatives to say or any stuff about your career? I think probably the black spot in my career was probably education. I probably didn't execute that the way that I probably should have. When I look back now, and I tell a lot of kids where back in our days about how good you were as a rugby league player. No one cared about if you messed up in school or you couldn't spell or you couldn't write. Obviously these days have changed. It's about how you are at school. If you're a good kid, you don't have to be the smartest kid, but if you're in class every day, you're contributing, you're doing all the right things. Well, then, you're going to fit an organisation that's built around success, that's built around good habits and all that stuff as well. So I really struggled. Like I obviously came from Cairns and it was sitting in the classroom after running around all day. It was pretty hot, but I figured out school wasn't for me. But I never. I went to school nearly every single day, but I just knew it wasn't for me. So, mate, I get where you come from. So whenever people say, I hated school, like I didn't hate too much. I didn't hate school. I just didn't like the assignments and all that stuff. Like I wasn't probably like the smartest kid in the class as well. Like obviously I knew that I had a talent in playing rugby league, and I just chased that as much as I possibly can.
Unlike Benny here, like he was a bit of a scholar back in the day at school, isn't he? He's carrying half a dozen degrees with him. Yeah,
well, he carries on about he's got an OP of 2 or something. That's what he keeps floating around.
What's that mean?
What's that mean, Benny?
Well, it just means I read a lot of books, doesn't it, guys? So, look, in terms of your focus about, where you were as a kid, where you were as in your professional journey, what's brought about this pivot to M26 Fit? Why have you wanted to get involved in the personal development space? Talk to us about your passions for that. Just tell the audience out there why M26 Fit.
Yeah, well, it I guess it was born a number of years ago, but probably the pivot point for me was back a bit over 10 years ago. My wife got cancer, and so I'm sitting in the ward and she's getting treatment, and I had a number of habits that weren't healthy, and that was the turning point for me to really get in and focus on my fitness. And then probably maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I just wanted to really just build a brand that it's 26 minutes. It's 26 minutes of movement. And I went through a dark mental health journey, and I found that having movement and exercise in my life had a huge impact in getting me through that really dark period. And so wanting to inspire people to just get off the couch and move.
What type of movement? Like, is it obviously when people hear fitness, they cringe. Obviously we're not all runners and stuff, but there are people out there, like you said, who just sit on the couch, think, they're happy just to do that. But what type of movement are you talking? Is it like ultra physical stuff? Is it like just as in going for a walk, doing push-ups, sit-ups? Well, like what type of stuff are you talking about?
Yeah, it's going to vary for each individual, and it's very much I'm a believer in taking baby steps. So if you've been spending a lot of time on the couch, then what you should do is just focus on going for a 26-minute walk. And then after a week or two, you might want to introduce some stairs. But it's literally just getting your heart rate up a bit. And then as you get older, what I'm learning about is that you lose muscle mass. So I believe that strength training needs to be incorporated, in particular as you get older. But it's spirit-led, so it's what you enjoy. So if you enjoy walking or you enjoy cycling, it's just finding something. And my wife brought up an interesting point the other day with one of the girls from her work that she loved dancing. And she used to dance as a young girl, and then now she's in her mid-40s. And it's like, hey, I want to go back and do dancing because that's still movement. And it's just basically just moving your body and increasing your heart rate.
Yeah, and it also gives you a good opportunity to grab someone as well, like a friend. I think that's probably the hardest thing I found is being an ex-sports person when you're used to training every day with someone, is finding someone to train with. I think if you can find someone who's suitable to what you're going through, it makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Well, nowadays with social media, there's so many groups. My wife's mother, for example, she came over from England and she just jumped on a group and she'd meet up with a group of ladies and they would do Tai Chi down at the park. So now there's, like you pointed out, you just find some people that you have some commonality with and then go out and enjoy some movement with them. And that's the connectivity as well, which I think is a huge thing that I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And so obviously you're talking about the link between personal well-being and sort of like achieving professional goals. When did you realise, when you were constructing M26 Fit, when did you realise there was such a big link? Has that been a lifelong journey, or how would you describe that to the listeners?
Yeah, it's definitely been a lifelong journey for me, and I know that Justin would contest to it, that it's a discipline. And when you're having to exercise and you're having, particularly if you need to be getting up early, because a lot of the time you don't want to do it. And in life, you need to be doing things that you don't want to do. So that first year in school, for example, I didn't want to be at school. I dreaded going to school, but you just had to turn up. And that's been a real lesson for me in whatever it is that I've done, is you just turn up. You turn up day after day after day, and then you build some momentum, you build some consistency, and then sooner or later you've achieved something.
What about some setbacks, mate, whether it's business, whether it's M26 Fit? What are some setbacks that you've actually went to a bit of a dark place, but then what got you out of there? What motivated you again to get back to your beautiful self now?
Probably the biggest setback I had was when I was doing the development up in Mullaney. That wasn't going according to plan. And back then I was drinking too much. So my wife was a big influence on me and said, listen, mate, you need to get off the piss and you need to get back into Brisbane, get around your mates, get back on the bike, get to the gym. And that was the biggest turning point for me to be able to. And I decided then I wanted to do a triathlon. So I really just started smashing myself and doing 10, 15 hours. And the endorphins that I got from that just well and truly outweighed any little buzz that I used to get from alcohol. And subsequently, I don't drink too much anymore.
What about food? Are you picky on what you eat, or is it all, obviously you're a very fit man, you're very critique with terms of your structure and how you train and stuff. What's your food habits like?
Very good. That's probably the thing I'm most disciplined on. A lot of OCD going on with my food, both in the food that I eat and the times in which I eat. I'm very, very disciplined on. But the simplicity for me is just whole foods. So I've never been big on anything saucy. It's just whole foods. Like I spend most of my time running around the outside aisles, like the fruit and veg and meat department is something I'll need to frequent once a week. Yep. Everything else I could just buy online and get that once or twice every few months.
So KFC's out of the
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I had takeaway food. So
maybe it's the company I keep.
There's that influence piece again. Like you got to watch who you hang around, mate.
Yeah, I know, exactly right. No, it's like you said. Like it's a big thing to commit to training and have a positive mindset. But then if you allow yourself to have bad food, but then you're not really being true to yourself. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong, and they think, oh, I've trained 5 times this week, and I'm going to enjoy a beer. Like, that's fine, but is it really helping you long term? Like I think, like you said, you had to get away from that environment. You had to come back here and change your mindset. And a lot of people think that. And I was the same. Like you had 3 or 4 good days and you can go and have a pizza and have a beer where it sort of doesn't add up that way, does it?
No. Well, as you get older, as you'd appreciate as well, and your metabolism changes, you could get away with that when in a younger environment. But as you get a little bit older, like we got a group going at the moment through M26 Fit, the Dry 25 group. We got 20 blokes and we're all going 100% no alcohol for the year. And Benny's was good enough to stick his hand up and have a crack with that. And that to me is going to be a life changer for a lot of people. Now we're nearly 3 months into it now, and that'll change your life. And as soon as you realise that you can actually live without, because unfortunately I think alcohol's become a bit systemic in society. It's certainly a very acceptable drug to consume.
Yeah, and look, obviously, in terms of what you're talking about in relation to health choices and daily behaviours, talk to us about you've obviously, on your M26 Fit podcast, I've watched a few episodes myself, as I've mentioned to you, and you've interviewed some incredible people. Like, talk to me about some common traits, trends you've picked up, and just things that maybe, our listeners can hear today to help them think different, be different, and act different in their daily life.
Yep. Well, there's a few things that come to mind, and the first one is vision. Every single one of them had a vision. They knew what they wanted. They knew what the goal was. They had self-belief, and then they acted. And that's one of the biggest pieces I think a lot of people don't do. And you've got to commit to something, and then you've got to keep going at it and have that level of consistency and that level of determination. Those traits there is a must. You need to have that vision, have that goal, have a belief system, and then do something and continue to do something until you reach that goal. And I think you'd agree, Hodjo?
Yeah, look, I do. I think, for anyone in life, whether it's sport or business, I think having a clear picture on what you want to do and break that down. So a lot of kids I see these days, they'll have a goal. Say, for example, I want to be a doctor. Okay, that's great. But what do you need to do? What subjects you need to do? What university you need to go to?
Also,
the plan, the strategy.
Yeah, so it's like the tree and having all these roots underneath, right? You got to have a plan. You got to see, okay, well, there's going to be setbacks. Well, if I do this and that's a setback, people think, oh, that's a failure, I'm going to give up now. Well, setbacks is what you want in life because it takes what you did wrong and you go and fix that. So a lot of people struggle with goals and they struggle to overcome things when they actually find a bit of a hurdle they can't seem to get themselves over, where I actually blossomed from that. Like when I got all my injuries, everyone would say, oh, retire, you're getting too old now, blah, blah, blah. So I used that as motivation. I cut those pieces of papers out and I stuck it everywhere. And so when I came back and Journos asked me the question, I said, mate, aren't you the bloke who told me to retire? And left it as that, but I just put it straight back on them. So having those tools and knowing how to do things like that can really motivate you as well.
That's very, very well said. And if you come back, and I love using the analogy as a carpenter, as a builder, like you might have a vision that you want this house, you want this dream home. Well, you need a set of plans because you can't just have that home. You need to be able to build that home, and the only way to build that home is off a set of drawings. And the more detailed those drawings are, the closer that home is going to be to your dream.
So, So what's next for you, mate? I know you're a bit of a risk taker. What's next? What's going on that's in your mind that you want to have a go at or something like that? Is there something you're keen on doing next?
Yeah. Firstly, I'm consolidating a bit because M26 is at its infancy, and I've got a habit that I get distracted quite easily. And there have been some, as you guys, that's been written on my report card since grade 1. So I've had to force myself. So even that Mulaney development that wasn't going well, the easiest thing to do would have just been sell up or whatever, and I'm just going to sidestep over here. But I've really had to learn patience, and then just learn just to grind and keep grinding and keep grinding. It hasn't been as successful as I would have liked. Like Benny pointed out, I've interviewed a lot of guys and been very blessed, yourself included, Justin, and yet it hasn't had the level of viewing that I would have liked. But again, when I listen to and talk to other people, you just need to keep at it for year after year after year, and then you're likely to get somewhere. And I guess being a little bit tenacious and wanting to be a little bit determined about it, I want to take that as far as I can take it before I look and do something else, because otherwise I don't think it's going to get the legs if I get distracted and go and play somewhere else. But
so having that mindset, like you just said, What relaxes you? What's some passions that you actually enjoy that take you away from that mindset where you're just on? What allows you to relax and something that you enjoy?
Probably sport. Like I actually enjoy going to the gym. I find that relaxing. Put some music on.
What songs? What songs in there?
It's got a wide variety of playlists, but it's probably stuff that you would the old 80s and 90s feature fairly prominently. Ice hockey, that's an amazing thing that I like to do. Riding my push bike and riding my motorbike. Those two things are when I get in the zone, particularly on the motorbike, because I need to be fairly focused on where I'm going.
I can imagine. I'll be a bit hesitant riding on the back of you for the motorbike.
Yeah. And obviously jumping in the helicopter and going for a fly too, that's something that when I'm in that environment, I'm 100% zoned on that and I'm not thinking about anything else.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually. Talk to us about that. Like what motivated you to get your helicopter license and fly helicopters? I think that itself is a massive achievement. Not everyone says they get to fly helicopters. Like, what got you to that point, and why are you so passionate about flying helicopters?
It probably, if I go way back, I was 8 years old, and we'd only been in the country for 3 years, and I was down the Gold Coast, and I remember this rescue helicopter came out, and it was hovering just above the waves, and then a guy in a wetsuit jumps onto the skid, and then dives into the ocean. And I'm sitting there just going, oh, wow, I was just in awe about all that thing. And you sort of, as an 8-year-old kid, you go, I want to be a helicopter pilot, but you just don't think any further of it. And then back, I took a trip with my wife up to Cairns, and the waves and the wind were so much we couldn't get a boat out to the Barrier Reef. And then I noticed that a helicopter was able to take off. So we went and had a chat to them, and next thing you know, we're doing a tourist flight out over the ocean and landed actually out at the Barrier Reef, and that just fueled it a bit more. And again, then I guess life got in the way, and I was too focused on building a career and building a family. And then a good friend of mine that we spoke to recently, James Robinson, I had him in my office. He was doing some development work, we were doing building work, and he was a grade 2 instructor. He just bought himself a helicopter, and then I told him, I said, oh mate, I'd love to do that. And he goes, mate, you should. Here's a number. This guy's the best instructor in Brisbane. I just completed the development at Mullaney at the time, and I thought, this is an opportunity. And fortunately, again, the people that you hang around, I've got an extremely supportive wife, and I said, hey, like thinking about this, she goes, you should do it if that's something that you really wanted to do. Now's your chance, because it obviously costs some money, but then it takes a lot of time. And if you're not able to put both of those, because if in your career, if I would have gone off and like now when I'm focused on M26, I couldn't go and give that the dedication that it needed, because it was almost 6 months, nearly full time for me. And academically, I really struggled. And again, that just comes back to my life at school. The way that I learn from seeing and doing. So just reading something and trying to memorize it and recite it, that's so I really struggled with the theory component in particular, and I probably put 2 or 3 times the hours in that the other students put into the theory to be able to do that. But the flying part, again, that's something that I took to a little bit better. But that was something that I'm super proud of, and I was able to take my wife for a fly down to Byron for her 50th, and my father had never ever been in a helicopter in his life, and I got to fly him out for breakfast on Father's Day.
Wow!
So it was one of those things, but again, it was just fueled from a dream, and I think just looking, and there's that vision piece.
So with the Ridge at Mullaney, obviously you've created, something that's going to outlive you, outlive all of us probably. What does that legacy mean to you for those who don't know much about the Ridge at Mullaney project that you led? What does having that to give back to the community on the Sunshine Coast mean to you?
It means the world to me. When we first had the vision up there, we wanted to create this sanctuary up in the mountains for everybody to enjoy. So when it's short-term accommodation, so we got 16 luxury cabins, 1, 2 and 3 bedroom across 300 acres, and that, like you pointed out, will be there forever. So people are going up, and in the beginning I was running it all myself, and I'm listening to all the guest feedback, and it's still now when I see our Google reviews come through of, oh wow, we had the most amazing time, that just that fills me. It is an incredible blessing to be able to have had that opportunity.
We often get asked all these questions like when you're playing football, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you say? Blah, 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 blah. But for you, I think it's pretty important. Is there anything that you would change that you've, as you sit here today, I'm not going to ask you for your age, but is there anything that now, how successful you are and the things that we just spoke about, what you've been able to accomplish, is there anything you would have done differently to get somewhere quicker, or what would you have done if you could speak to your younger self to educate yourself better, quicker? Is there anything like that you sort of could elaborate on?
Probably the one thing that comes to mind, because I've been fairly blessed in taking opportunities as they came, and when I look back, there's only been one opportunity, and I was 19 years old, and I got the opportunity to buy this block of land. And as a 20-year-old, I was still a little bit fixated then in cars and spending a lot of money in cars. And I thought, no, that'll wait till next year. So I was getting married the following year. And I waited. And having to wait, that block of land went up 3 times in value in 12 months. And then I bought one down the road that I paid 3 times as much. And ever since then, so there's that lesson. And then the other lesson that I've learned in the property space is that you buy property, but you don't sell property. So idealistically, you buy that property, you pay it down, and then you use the equity on that to go buy another one, and they just keep increasing and increasing. Every time you make a property transaction, that costs you money to buy, it costs you money to sell. So there was a few properties that I've had that idealistically, when I look back, if I would have been able to hang on to that and I go, like my first house and what I sold that for and what that's worth today, and then I look back at the mortgage that I had on it, it's just, So that's some big investment lessons.
Yes, I think I could share one. When I was at the Roosters, I did the same thing. I bought a house down there. So this was back in 2003.
Wow.
But when I decided to come back to Brisbane, obviously I couldn't afford it because I wasn't on the same money, but it was at Botany Bay. Right?
Oh.
So if you put if you like, you could go up and put 2 stories, you get ocean views. Like, can you imagine what that's worth now? I think I paid like 800-something thousand for it back then.
Yeah. That'd probably
imagine what it's worth now, 20.
That's it.
Wow. And that's when I heard you bring that up, I was just like, because I look back, I was only young. I was like, I was 20 years of age, same as you. 20 years of age, just like, I wanted to come home, didn't think nothing about property prices.
Probably worth $8 million now.
Oh, mate, that's why I don't go near Botany. When I fly over, I just close my eyes.
All right, so it's time for the quick fire questions.
With Benny.
Why not? All right, you ready to go, mate?
I'm ready.
All right, favourite sport?
Ice hockey.
A significant event that has shaped your life?
Becoming a father.
Greatest fear?
Not realising my potential.
One habit that has changed your life?
Daily fitness.
The biggest myth about entrepreneurship?
It's easy.
Well said. A movie that you've watched more than 3 times, and be honest.
Top Gun.
Good movie.
I thought you were going to say Barbie or something.
Alrighty. What's harder, starting or scaling a business?
Scaling.
A book you'd recommend for all the listeners out there?
The Principles by Ray Dalio.
What does a perfect day look like for you, Magnus?
Oh, not a cloud in the sky, -5. There's just been 12 inches of fresh snow and I'm up on top of the hill somewhere in the Rockies.
Did you just land on a helicopter?
That'd be even nicer.
Ooh.
What's your favourite holiday destination?
Canada.
Your happy place?
Yeah, it's one of them. Actually, Canada. Yeah. Up on top of a hill. Altitude's a big thing for me. So if I'm on top of a hill somewhere, I'm generally pretty happy.
Now, based on our conversation off camera this morning, I reckon I might know the answer to this one. A skill set you wish you had?
Play a musical instrument or sing. I'm just useless at both of those.
Same. Don't worry. Not alone.
Yep, me as well. What's the best advice for any of our listeners out there you could give them to help them in their daily life?
Believe in yourself and keep doing it until you do it, until you get it.
Fantastic. Well, Magnus, look, on behalf of Justin and myself, thank you so much for sharing the M26 Fit message today. And it was great to have you as a guest today, mate.
Mate, thanks very much for having me, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
You're well on the hot seat.
Bit of a change.
It is a change.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.